Alexa, tell me a joke about psychology.
What did the skier say to his therapist? My life is going downhill.
Ugh, that one was terrible. Okay, so let's finish up this chapter, and we're going to talk about forgetting. Ooh, what just happened? Don't know what happened, but I'm back. The first thing we're going to talk about is the serial position effect, which is essentially what does our brain attend to the most. So if I were to read you 10 words right now, the words at the beginning of the list are what you would remember the best. The words at the end of the list are what you would remember second best. And the stuff in the middle would just be gone, probably. So collectively, that's called the serial position effect. But it's a combination of what we call the primacy effect, remembering the stuff at the beginning the very best, and the recency effect, remembering the last stuff or the most recent stuff next in terms of effectiveness. But the middle is kind of goes out the window. All right, so forgetting is a function of a number of things, and we'll go through those bit by bit, starting with anterograde amnesia. I feel like I told you this story, but just to review, a faculty member that used to work with me had a wife whose virus destroyed her hippocampus. Okay, so she could make no new memories, and that's anterograde amnesia. So he had to bring her to work every day, and she would reintroduce herself to us every single day. And you could have a really interesting conversation with her because all her old long-term memories, all the stuff that was already in here before the virus, she could pull up and talk about. And she had an interesting background, but nothing new. And he couldn't leave her at home because she might turn on the stove and forget she turned on the stove. Now, I hate the movies that are out there like 50 First Dates. If you've seen it, no, that's not really what I'm talking about. In 50 First Dates, she remembers like a whole day and then it resets. But somebody with anterograde has about 30 seconds and then they're going to lose it. Maybe a little longer sometimes, but no. So I talked to that woman like every day for years. And one day after years of doing it, she remembered my name, but then it was gone again. So I don't know how it snuck in that one time, but okay. Retrograde amnesia. Some of you, if you've ever had a head injury, you have some experience with this. That's when you can't remember the past. So I was in a really bad car accident about 1.5 years ago, and I don't remember anything about the accident. Okay, so stuff that happens usually right before a head injury, it never has the chance to become consolidated. I don't know where memory consolidation went. Yeah, right there. It never has a chance to have that happen, so it's just gone. Sometimes there's more severe cases where you forget the past. Super severe brain injury where you're actually damaging the memories that are in there. But the most common is just right before something happens to your brain. Okay, encoding failure means that you can't remember where you parked your car because you weren't paying attention when you parked it, and so it never got encoded in the first place. Okay, happens to me all the time. I just am thinking about other stuff. I'm walking away from my car. I come back out and I don't have a clue where my car was because I didn't encode it in the first place. Retrieval failure, I did pay attention where my car is and now I just can't remember what it is, okay, for various reasons. So retrieval is just the inability to find something that actually made it into long-term memory. With encoding failure, it never makes it into long-term memory. All right, proactive and retroactive interference. It's really hard to keep these two separate because they literally interfere with each other. Interference is when we try to bring up one piece of information and something similar comes up instead. So proactive is when old information interferes with your ability to pull up newer information. Classic example, SWIC makes us change those frickin' passwords every 5 minutes, right? And for the first 5 days, you're typing in your old password because that's better stored than the new information. So it is interfering with that new password you picked. Retroactive interference is when the reverse happens, when newer information interferes with old information. So when I moved here from New York, I got a new phone number, and at first I was experiencing proactive interference. I could remember my New York phone number, but not my Illinois phone number, because I had used my New York phone number so many times, and I had hardly used my Illinois one at all. But about a year after I had been here, I got a phone bill from New York for like $11. And so I called them up, and they're like, well, what was your phone number in New York? Now I was experiencing retroactive interference. For a year, I've been using my new Illinois number, and I hadn't been practicing my New York number, so my new number was interfering with my old one. All right, motivated forgetting is pretty much the same thing as repression. It's when your brain decides that something is so traumatic, perhaps childhood sexual abuse, something like that, that you don't even remember it occurred. Your brain has decided it's a little too much for you to deal with, and so you repress it. Memory construction. So we have a lot of errors in our brain. This is one of them. If you are interested in this stuff, there's a woman named Elizabeth Loftus who does fascinating experiments. So, for example, she had, let's say, 100 people watch the video of the same car accident. And half the group, she said, how fast was that car going when it bumped into that other car? And to the other half, she said, how fast was that car going when it crashed into that other car? And what you found is people had different memories based on just that one word she altered. She did another study where she would be like, how fast was that car going when it ran this stoplight? And there'd be no stoplight there, but they would remember seeing a stoplight. Okay, misinformation effect is when you have a memory and then you get a piece of information afterwards and work it into that memory. So for example, eyewitness testimony. If you ever witness a crime, what you should do is immediately separate yourself from everybody else and write down what you remember. And honestly, it's going to be weird and disjointed and not very clear. But what they find is if you ask people 2 months later, they have this beautifully clear, coherent story that's twice as long as their initial testimony, because their brain has decided what makes sense to fill in here. So you're putting misinformation back into the memory. False memories. They've done some great studies where they very easily implanted false memories of being attacked by dogs in people. It's really amazing how easy it is to manipulate our memory and how inaccurate it can be. Source learning is when we can remember the information, but we can't remember where we heard it from, or we say we heard it from the wrong source. And then relearning, honestly, that probably belongs back over with things that aid. I should have put that over here. Oh, I did it again. Okay. So it really should go back over here, because relearning, let's say you took French in 7th grade and it was very hard, and now you're taking it again. It'll be faster to learn it again the second time because it's still in there. It just has to be refreshed. All right, so that's it for memory. I'll see you for the next chapter. I hope things are going really well for you. I hope you're being very careful and safe. I don't want anything to happen to you, so take care of yourselves. All right, bye-bye.